Welcome back. This is the Entrepreneurial Spark program coming to you on your number one TV channel, KTS. Dr. Nashuma, what are the implications of this WTO for entrepreneurship development?
Yes, the implications for entrepreneurship in the developing countries and the developed countries will be enormous in this regard after this conference. Of course, depending on the outcomes of the conference. But we can specifically state that on aspects of tariffs, if the agreements are good, then it means there will be better trade, better benefits that will translate into better economic life and living standards of people in all nations in the world.
Maybe for an entrepreneur who is watching us out there, when we are talking of tariffs, what exactly do we mean in the business world?
Basically, we are talking, when we talk of tariffs, we are focusing on the taxes that are charged on goods originating from one country to the other country. That increases the cost of those goods and denies, the consumers an opportunity to consume those goods.
Good, thank you.
Secondly, rules of origin. If there are agreements on the rules of origin, then this aspect we generally refer to as the most favored national treatment of goods originating from one country to the other will also increase the volume of trade that will be undertaken among nations in the world. Thirdly, the issues of dumping. If there is an agreement on the issues of dumping, then we shall increase productivity among nations such that some nations which have better technology and better capacity will not exploit the least developed countries which are not able to produce the goods at the same really lower cost. We also have other indirect benefits like the settlement of disputes among nations. I realize that if the disputes are settled, then entrepreneurship will be able to be undertaken at a better, higher level for the benefits of the entrepreneurs and various nations. Another aspect pertaining to the benefits that will accrue from the 10th Ministerial Conference of the WTO will be enhanced or increased market access, especially for agricultural produce and manufactured goods from developing nations to the developed nations. Again, we find that the intellectual property aspect, if the agreements are done well, then it means even the indigenous, like African traditional intellectual property will be protected. And that means that the African countries are likely to benefit more from the endowment of natural resources that they have got, unlike before. And finally, balance of payments. It is an aspect that really creates disparity among nations, and it brings the classification of poor nations, least developed nations, and developed nations. If there is an agreement on how to structure the balance of payments, then it means that there will be better balanced growth among nations.
Additionally, there are some direct benefits that will accrue to entrepreneurship and the economy in general from this conference. Number one, in any situation where we have people congregating, that forms really a market. And that market is bound to consume. They'll consume goods and services. So if you look at Nairobi for the next maybe couple of days, you'll find that there will be a lot of consumption in terms of goods and services. Hospitality industry for that matter will benefit a great deal in terms of provision of food, provision of rooms. We'll look at also people who are providing transport from one point to the other. If we have some entrepreneurs who want to showcase what they are offering, they can be able to do an exhibition. When we have an exhibition, then they'll be able to really show what they can offer, so that some of those countries which are actually participating are able to really capture with this. Things like health and health issues. We expect even some conferees to be sick. So if you are running a clinic or something like that, I think you'll have business. Not to mention, of course, fellows in the Koinange street. There is business for them. So generally, I think there is a host of businesses which will benefit directly from that. But overall, as my colleague has said, I think if we succeed in negotiating the door, I think they estimate that it will bring about $1.8 trillion at the end of it all. So for the entire conglomerate of trading block, 1.8 trillion is really massive. So we expect those to be direct and indirect benefits that we need to have.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your input in this discussion. And we've mentioned something on the benefits of the WTO. However, in the last conferences, we've had some issues that were raised. What are your take on these issues, Dr. Nashuma?
Yes, Regina, there are a number of issues that have arisen over time with respect to the multilateral trading agreements undertaken by the various ministerial conferences. And these issues are normal when it comes to negotiations because it all depends on the degree of preparedness of the member states. But unfortunately, in some of the instances, we find that in the least developed nations, most of the teams that are appointed to participate in the negotiations are never well prepared. They are weak, and they do not really know what is it that we require. Probably in one of the previous negotiations, when we had really a strong team from Kenya, from the Ministry of Trade, we realized that there was a lot of progress made in favor of the developing nations. Another aspect that could constitute a major challenge to the WTO effectiveness in creating an appropriate environment for trade between nations could be corruption. And this, as you know very well, corruption is not something limited to one nation, but the intensity or the degree of the corruption activities in a given nation could pronounce the delay in the benefiting from the agreements of the WTO. The third issue that could also constitute a major challenge is governance and leadership. This could really derail because when it comes to allocation of resources, provision of services and value, even within a nation, you find if there are disparities, then it will not be possible for a given nation to benefit from the WTO agreements.
Mr. Sergon, what's your take on the same?
Thank you, Regina. I want to agree with my colleague that those are some of the challenges facing World Trade Organization. Other challenges could be diverse interests of member states. You'll find we are in different levels. We have developed countries developing at a higher level, and then we have the LDC. So you'll find that each and every party will want really to work for their interests. So specifically what we are saying is that if a country like Kenya is trying to negotiate, they'll want really to protect their interests. It could be protecting their infant industries, like what we've been doing in Comesa region, where we've protected maybe the sugar industry for some time. So you'll find other countries also will do the same, so much so that negotiation becomes a challenge in all this. So it actually boils down to every party wanting to really win more from the negotiation.
The words.
The other challenge that faces the conference is politics. You know, you cannot really separate politics from trade. So you'll find countries have their own political ideologies. You'll find some of the agreements are politicized. If you want to do maybe a certain concession, you'll have to ask yourself what will be the political implication back at home. So you'll find politics play a very critical role in really trying to delay these negotiations. So you'll find most negotiations are delayed because you need to really focus on what will happen if we do this. If we remove this subsidy, what will be the ramifications on political perspective. So generally you'll find these are issues that really affect them, and in most cases we expect countries to really work on them. And lastly, and of course not very significant, is mistrust among states. You'll find there is mistrust between maybe the former Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. So you'll find we still have some grains of the Berlin Wall, which becomes a challenge. But it's not a major issue. If countries will negotiate maybe in good faith, I think we are likely to really reach a consensus in March of this issue, so that we don't really protract something for 14 years and expect the results, because dynamics are also changing.
Your final comments, please.
In our final comments, we can say that the hosting of the 10th Ministerial Conference of the WTO in Kenya, and particularly in Nairobi, is a great honor to this nation. It gives us the credibility that we are actually being counted among nations that can really host such a conference and drive trade in the world. Secondly, the economic stability of nations will be achieved if this conference is transacted appropriately.
Mr. Sargon?
As he puts it, the conference is actually instrumental in putting Kenya in what we call a global map, especially in the wake of terrorism, to demonstrate that Kenya is safe for business.
Sure.
Two, we need to appreciate the fact that we should not really focus on this global market so much so that we forget our local market. If you look at this African market, we are talking about 150 million populace, which can still be a serious market. So we need to really come up with ways in which we can add value, because it's easier for us to add value and sell in the local market than to go abroad. Because if you have to sell some other markets abroad, you attract some penalties for adding value. So what we need to do is we look at what can we do locally, sell to commercial region, SADC, EAC, and then we do business.
Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts on the World Trade Organization 10th Ministerial Conference in Nairobi, and with respect, that is with respect to entrepreneurship. My name is Regina Kinyolando. Until next Wednesday, have a beautiful Wednesday.